Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And a very important day of Major 2 qualification matches has just come to an end. The battle of the worst 2 teams in the league also went down today. A winner has been crowned in that one. Plenty of other things to discuss as well this evening. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you were new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. But of course, before the day kicked off, we had to actually determine here what New York were going to do with their roster. They had to, announce something or other before the Paris Legion game, given we knew that Priestahh probably was going to be out of this team before long. Honestly, subliners, they kind of make up for their delay with some pretty quality announcement videos, to be honest. But anyway, maybe all we needed was the X Factor. X comes into the team. They actually confirmed that Crim will now assume the responsibilities of the main AR. Clay will be moving to the bench. Paul comes in. Neptune and Hydra remaining, for now at least, as the SMG duo. We talked about this morning that it was very possible they actually were looking for a replacement for Neptune, and of course he had, I guess, a chip on his shoulder to show up today and actually prove why they need to keep him in the roster, which certainly he did. Very interesting, actually, given the whole situation, given the pretty much night and day comparison to what his stats looked like before this series, and then with Clay out and X in, the stats he had today. Now, Clay goes on to kind of explain the situation from his perspective, what he's thinking going forwards. We're going to dive into this more tomorrow, because there's certainly a fair bit to discuss here, but yeah, we just do not have time this evening. Stay tuned for tomorrow morning, though. But Clay does confirm that he's benched and looking for an opportunity on another team, so not looking to retire yet, but certainly still potentially more to that story that we will dive into. But let's dive into these series then, right? Because New York, of course, played Paris in a few games, so we kind of knew what their roster was going to be, but FaZe played out against the London Royal Ravens, and honestly, you just don't want to be, like, if FaZe have lost their previous series, as they did last week to Seattle, you just do not want to be the team that has to play them, because every single time FaZe lose, I don't know when the last time is they lost 2 series in a row, probably, maybe they did it last season a couple of times, but it's very rare that it happens, to be honest. They always bounce back seemingly incredibly well from losses, so you just don't want to be the team facing them, even if you're a squad like London. And on paper, I think the FaZe are just straight up the better team right now. I think they were the better team this series, but honestly, London put up a great fight. It was a really close series, to be honest, at least in terms of the overall, the Hardpoint especially. Game 1, though, Arcitys drops a casual 40 and 22. Like, I mean, kind of incredible that Cellium, aBeZy, and Simp combined, don't have much over 40 kills. Combined, they have, 56 kills between the 3 of them, and Arcitys alone has 40, right? So that's incredible. I believe that's a Gava 2 Hardpoint record. I'm guessing it must be, because I don't really think we've seen better than that before in this map. So he drops 40 game 1, then we go to a Search and Destroy, and this honestly was just completely dominant from the FaZe guys. Like, given the fact that London looked good on this map yesterday against Paris, at FaZe, look at this first round, right? London are trying to make a play, and then immediately they just get shut down. 1 kill comes through, the second kill from Simp, aBeZy goes through, and Simp gets the final one as well. And within 5 seconds of the first blood, it's game over, and London are already down 1-0. Must have got in their head a little bit, to be honest. They lose this game 2. Then they go into the game 3, though, and this, in fairness, is where, honestly, London are just so damn good at giving you 2 control. Of course, this was quite an interesting screenshot, because you can see Cellium up here in that spot that last week I think a lot of people considered to be a glitch spot. No, of course, no action has yet been taken on this by the CDL, or whether this is allowed, whether this is indeed an unintended line of sight. But again, regardless, London come in here, they win 2 offenses, I believe. They pretty much dominate this map. Afra has a pretty good time as well. But I mean, yeah, they win the control. This is a map where FaZe are honestly pretty decent, but London are probably the best team in the world by a significant margin on this map right now, at least how it's played out these last several weeks. They then go to a Tuscan Hardpoint. This early on, FaZe had a nice advantage. At this point, Simp was just taken over. It's been kind of, few and far between that Simp has a crazy takeover series. He does that right here, but still, London almost bring this one back. If anything, they should have won it towards the very end. They had a great final rotation, and then after getting pretty much all the time on P1, they tried to go to P2, and then for some reason, the FaZe guys, look at this squad spawn they get right here. So number 7 spawns here, number 1, which is a London player, is right here. You would think that, okay, where are they going to spawn? Instead, they just spawn all on top of him, and number 1, I'm pretty sure it might have been Zero, has no idea coming out of this window. They're all going to be next to him. He goes down, and yeah, unfortunate stuff. That's just Vanguard at the end of the day, baby. Yeah, FaZe arguably get kind of blessed with the way the spawns worked out right there, given the fact that they were on the verge of losing this one. They clutch up in the end, win a very close, 250, 242 or something, whatever that game 4 was. They get over the line in the end. Arcitys even says, they were hitting some good snakes first map. Need more gunny, though. Certainly the battle of the snakes a little bit with these 2 teams right now. Who can really blame London for pulling it out? I suppose you could say. But certainly a hotly contested series. FaZe win it 3-1 in the end. The stats are, very even across the board. I was impressed with everyone, to be honest. I think Afra had a slightly tougher time in the respawns than he usually does. Nasty was very good, though. But yeah, London just clearly, they're such a good squad. They tend to deal with the other teams pretty well. But against FaZe and OpTic, they still do seem like something of a step behind. Even though the respawns in this one were very close indeed. Felt like they still got outclassed, though, to some degree. Let's dive into this one then. Paris versus New York Subliners. Credit to Paris. Finally, they made a good graphic. Battle for last, which I thought was quite funny. They were doing some good meme tweets around this, to be perfectly honest. But of course, New York come in. They make that roster change. X comes into the squad. And the curse is broken in the very first map they play. 0-13. Finally, it comes to an end. They win the first game. Honestly, pretty impressive. impressive, to be honest, here on Bacage. They take this one up, CleanX is on the main ER, Hydra is making plays, Neptune looked way more comfortable today. I don't know if this is just a thing of Porlex in and Clayster out, whether it just made that much difference in the way Neptune plays, but we know what he was capable of last year. And I mean, so far this season we really didn't see it at all. 250 to 180 on Bacage is a pretty impressive victory margin, to be honest, here for the subliners, and they really continue that trend when we get into the Game 4. Game 2 also goes their way. The vibes seemed very high for New York, which is very rare to see, to be honest, as of late at least. Like, CleanX is there having a good time, Hydra seeming to be having a good time as well. Like, I don't know, like, it's well, wow, that shot was actually disgusting as well. That's the thing, like, Clayster obviously a phenomenal player, but when he finds himself in a tough situation, I believe he's been one of the first to admit that he's not always the best teammate at times, so maybe it was kind of getting this team down to some degree. They come in with a fresh mindset, they win this one, where they got up 2-0 here. They lose the control, actually, so Paris take that one, but then they dominate the Berlin Hardpoint, 250 to 79. This is honestly very impressive. Like, all the maps they won, the Desert Siege was dominant, both the Hardpoints, really, when you look at it, were comfortably outclassed Paris Legion, so from 0 in 13, they go to 2 in 13, and yeah, 2 Hardpoint wins in the series. Wasn't really predicting that one going in. I thought Paris might get the job done here in a Game 5, but 2 Hardpoint victories, what about that? So yes, this team immediately seems to have turned a corner, to be honest. Like, Porlex coming in, Porlex already has like, what, a 9 in 2 map count record. He played 2 series for London, won both of those. One was a 3-1 against New York, one was a 3-0 against Thieves, and now he plays this series a 3-1 victory. So Porlex apparently the factor, undefeated so far this year in the CDL. He reckons even the first 3 maps his controller wasn't overclocked, something you can do to make your controller have 1 millisecond delay time, rather than I believe the 5 milliseconds, which might be the default. But yeah, still, they got the job done in the end. Neptune says, feel a lot more comfortable on the map. Very interesting comments, actually, just because, well, Clayster leaves today, at least in terms of, yeah, I guess they've been playing with this team for a few days now, but like, Clay's out of there, and immediately Neptune feels more comfortable on the map. So quite interesting, given that he said he was, well, being forced by Clay and Krim or whoever into roles where he was just playing for the hill time, not getting many engagements, not getting much damage. Today, immediately looked way better on the map, right? And CleanX says the following: won 2 Hardpoints to win the series. I am Vengeance, I am Fatman. Apparently that's his new thing. This I thought was particularly good. Can't wait for Fatman versus Batman when they play OpTic next. But yeah, these were the overall series stats. Neptune and Hydra both plus 11. Porlex didn't have the greatest time, but he didn't need to, right? Apparently he's just the factor to win these series regardless. And this is really the first series we've actually seen Neptune be a force on the map, right? 84 in 73, like a fair bit of damage as well. I guess it was second lowest on the team, but still did a good job this series. And yeah, the Paris side, again, it's John and Temp really doing the heavy lifting. Jima has another pretty tough one. So fair play to the New York guys. They get off the board once again in this stage. Maybe this will be a turning point for them. I guess they'll keep Neptune and Hydra for now, at least, unless they want to make another move going forwards. Like a similar, well, kind of structure really this team has now to what the Dallas Empire had last year. Maybe they can start moving up there, well, the scoreboard. And of course, well, it's always good when New York win because you get a CleanX interview, which is always gold at the end of the day. Let's then dive into the next series, OpTic versus the Florida Mutineers. This one, I thought the Florida would put up a fight. Honestly, the map set, looking at it initially, had maps that I thought Florida were pretty damn good at, but also OpTic are good at them as well. So it was going to be a straight up brawl, to be honest. It was going to be the better team this series. And OpTic, once again, just they've continued to show what they've showed the last few days, that in the pressure moments, they just get over the line again and again and again, that there's not really been said for previous OpTic teams. Dashy, again, this series was an absolute monster. His stats are absurd. Like, he's just running away with the MVP, at least, well, number 1 MVP, like, current ranking, I suppose, right now, especially because his team's winning. If things change, I'm sure things will change on that front as well. But, yeah, obviously in previous years, Dashy has been dropping crazy numbers, but the team hasn't had results. So the questions are there, what's he doing on the map? This time, he's getting crazy numbers and the team's winning. So, of course, it's fantastic news all around if you're Dashy or an OpTic fan. Let's dive straight into this series then. So, gotta contest that, say OpTic, because, well, this game 1 Bacage, it goes down to the wire. It's always an absolute mix fest right here. OpTic are one of the only teams I've seen, like, a lot of teams actually all go all the way to 250 now, but OpTic have some way of playing this map where a lot of the games end at this point, where it's kind of like, oh, you know, 200, 190, something like that, and OpTic get in the hardpoint. Dashy's up top here contesting in this kind of strange spot you can contest the hardpoint in, but it works, and OpTic get the job done. It goes all the way down to time. They get at the hardpoint. They seem to be experts at this point, just slaying out, no problem at all. Florida, very good at this map. They go down. Vivid maybe didn't have quite the impact today that maybe he usually has on this team. Then game 2, it goes to a Berlin search and destroy. Shotzzy was well dominating. Honestly, this is very impressive. A comfortable victory here for the OpTic guys. Like, I mean, yeah, that shot would have been kind of nice, but unfortunately the hit marker comes through onto Skyz from Shotzzy. Vasily goes down 4-1. I believe it was 5-1 at a point. They end up closing it out 6-3. So yeah, then they're 2-0 up going into control. A game mode that they just do not lose right now, especially on Tuscan, with Dashy playing the way he is. So all across the board, very impressive from OpTic. I thought they'd win this series. I thought they might drop a map here or there, but I mean, yeah, they end up winning this one 6-3. Some nice shots from all the boys across the board, and then it goes all the way down to a game 5. This got, again, very suspect indeed. I felt like OpTic should have won this more convincingly, to be perfectly honest, but they had a pretty, well, big life deficit at a time. They had to survive 2 two fantastic pushes from the Florida guys, and there was a couple of moments where the OpTic guys like Dashi, he had to get like a two-piece to save them, and then he had to do the same thing again next life. Like Shotzzy comes up with a massive gunfight right there. It's absolute chaos on the point over here towards the B side. Shotzzy with a big two-piece gets those kills. At this point, it's now a 5-3 in favor of Florida, but there's just no time on the clock, and they can't get there in time. The Florida guys, only a couple of more kills come in, and well, that's pretty much job done, right? And that spells the end of the game. So yeah, honestly, a remarkable hold from OpTic. I feel like they were going to lose this map. The Florida guys frustrated they didn't win it. There were a couple of moments they could have done, but I mean, if there's any team in the game right now, it's a kind of crazy thing to say, but if there's any team that you kind of would put your money on clutching up in a situation like this, where Florida all over the point, right? They're getting it. There's only a few seconds to go. The OpTic guys have to get like 2-3 kills in the next 1 second to win the game, and they somehow managed to do it. So yes, their defense, it is the easier side, but still, again and again, OpTic are kind of proving they can clutch up in these situations, which is, well, certainly not the case for this team last year. Scump understandably very happy with the situation. GG's Florida 1-3-0 brick by brick. The overall series stats look like this. So again, it's just Dashi like leading the line. Scump's had a great few series lately. Shotzzy as well, just about positive. But yeah, Dashi 77 in 53, most damage in the entire lobby. Owakening and Skyz do a decent job as well. Not the greatest series for Vivid or Dave, but when you get 3-0'd, it's always going to look rather difficult. And that now leaves OpTic in a 10 series win streak in a row. I believe the record, at least in the CDL era, is Atlanta FaZe last year got to 13. If OpTic want to beat 13, they're going to have to win their next series, then beat FaZe to get to 12, and then of course if they make a run at the major, they can potentially beat FaZe's record, but they're going to have to go through FaZe to take their record, which is an exciting prospect. And a quite remarkable series to finish out the day as well. Toronto Ultra versus the Boston Breach, already becoming a fantastic rivalry so far this year, tends to go to a game 5, happens once again. This game 1 was out of control. I've never really seen a Bacage quite like this. We see, as we just talked about, right, when OpTic tend to play this map, it often will go to time and not to 250. This game goes all the way down to the wire. Honestly, Capsule almost had his own record broken by Nero in this game. Nero was a monster this series, all things considered. Toronto had a great lead early on. Nero already had like 30 kills, and it was like 120 to 110 or something. Like, well, actually, I think it was a little bit further apart than that, because at this point, it was 220 to 124. This lead is honestly massive on a map like Bacage, and well, the comeback comes through. Couldn't honestly believe that Boston managed to pull this one off, especially because Toronto had a pretty significant advantage right towards the end as well. But somehow over towards this kind of hardpoint in the barn here, Toronto collapsed, to be honest, and Boston Breach get the job done. They make a crazy comeback here on this Bacage. You don't often see comebacks like this. So many purple names on the wrong side of the kill feed, like you really have to just keep slaying them again and again and again to prevent them getting to the hardpoint. They just spawned so close, and even then with like 5 dead, they still almost get there. But still, Toronto go down. Game 2, in fairness to them, they bounce back. I was pretty impressed, to be honest, with the composure showed here from the Toronto guys to bounce back in this series, despite a catastrophic choke, let's just say, in that game 1. They then go to a Gavuto control. I guess that Toronto won the coin toss in this one, just because Boston are pretty terrible at Gavuto control. I don't know what their record is in it, but it must be pretty tragic. They seem to almost always lose it. This one goes to a round 5, they still lose anyway, and then they need to win 2 maps in a row. Gavuto Hardpoint, though, is definitely a different story. This was the start of the game. I don't know what it is with Toronto, either having incredible starts in the hardpoint where they do this to their opposition, or getting it done to them. Because, yeah, they go down 125 to 0 at the start of this game. Boston end up closing this out 250, I believe, to 99, just about put them in the 100-point club. And yeah, the slaying was just absurd, honestly, from the Boston guys. I'm pretty sure Method just went double positive, like, I don't know what he went. I think it was like 24 and 12 or something. Like, Boston just dominated this game pretty much from start to finish. And that really did give them some great momentum going into a Berlin search and destroy in the game 5. A map where Boston are very competent. And yeah, happens again, as Groden points out. The boob is in full effect as we go to the game 5 once again. I'm pretty sure this happened last time these two teams have played as well. Also, was kind of interesting at the end of that map 4, when they actually let the listening go all the way to the end of the game. I thought that was pretty cool. They were kind of talking, oh, these guys suck, they've got egos and this type of stuff. Thought that was fantastic. Obviously a dangerous game, but thought it was cool for the fans. And Boston Breach went a pretty emphatic game 5 as well, 6-2 here on the Berlin. Honestly, incredibly impressive. I'm pretty sure I predicted this earlier today, so fair play to me and all the other guys that predicted this as well, I'm sure. Plenty of you in the comment section below. But that leaves Boston now 3-0 so far this stage. And big questions being raised about Toronto, really. Losing a game 5 like this is not something I used to do. A series like this, they could go game 5, but usually they would win it. Like, their clutch factor as of late has definitely been falling off. These then the final series stats from GG Breaker point to close out the video. Honestly, like, this is exactly what you want to see if you're a Boston fan. TG, I'm pretty sure, got hard smoked game 1 and they still won. But Nero plus 19, Methods plus 20, Capsule plus 10, and yeah, Cammy with the worst series, at least in terms of, well, KD-wise, on the Toronto side. Not been his greatest year so far by any means. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hitting the like button tells the YouTube god this is a good video. I just like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thanks Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.